Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. What if the key to unlocking your greatness, leadership potential has been within you since the day you were born? What if your life story holds a leadership fingerprint, a unique pattern of values and principles that once uncovered can help you lead with clarity, trust, and purpose? And how do you grow a business or a career without losing your soul along the way? Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriela Embon, and today I am thrilled to explore these questions with someone who has lived them in some of the world's most complex leadership arenas. My guest today is David Lapin, a global thought leader on leadership, culture, and ethical business transformation, and the author of Lead by Greatness. Now, David was raised in apartheid era South Africa. He worked alongside Nelson Mandela's government and leading businesses figures to draft one of the world's first formal corporate ethics code, still in use today. As founder of Lapin International, he now helps leaders and organizations around the world align strategy with character and culture, with purpose, guiding them to navigate complexity without compromising who they are. Today, we'll talk about discovering your leadership fingerprint, mapping your values from your life story, and why values can be the most powerful driver for leaders and business owners. I'm so excited to welcome you, David. Hello, how are you today?
Hi, Gabriela. I'm well, thank you, and very excited to be on with you today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I can't wait to dive into your story. So, I mean, you have such a story, but please take us there. You were raised in apartheid area South Africa, a country in the middle of extraordinary change. Please take us back to that environment and share how it shaped your views on leadership, dignity, and ethics.
Gabriela, you're right. It was a strange environment. Apartheid was a very artificial construct, and when you look back at it, when I look back on it, it was kind of weird. But in that weirdness, there's so much to learn, and I think a lot of what I certainly, and I think many others have learned from the experience of the apartheid period, is being able to look back at it in retrospect and learn. As with so many things in lives, we learn so much from looking in the rearview mirror, things that we don't always appreciate at the times that they're happening, or don't even understand at the times that they're happening. And apartheid was an environment where two sets of people, large population groups. There were about 4 million white people and about 9 or 10 million, I think, at that time, black people in South Africa, living in two different worlds. And although we lived very close to each other, we had black people who worked for us, who lived on our property, lived with us. And certainly the black areas were just down the road from us. They weren't far. But it was so separate. We had no idea of their lives, of their culture, of their language, of what they were doing. When the maids that worked for us did go home, we didn't understand where they were going to. We didn't understand what the journey was like from the city to they were called locations, the areas where the black population lived. We didn't know what it was like, how life-threatening, how dangerous it was just to travel from home to work and from work to, we just had really no idea, except occasionally there would be an incident, someone would be hurt, someone would be injured, we would find out what the story was. But generally we lived our white lives and they lived their black lives, and there was very little interaction. That was the nature of apartheid. That's how it was engineered. So we grew up without fully understanding, or without understanding at all, the what was happening, and even to a large degree, as children at least, without understanding the immorality of it. There were some children who did understand it better than others. Um, Around our dinner table, the discussion was obviously there was political discussion often, and my father was involved with leaders of both sides of the liberal opposition and of the government. So we certainly heard stories, and these were discussions. But I think generally what my parents were concerned about that we should treat people with dignity no matter who they were. They would get really upset with us and angry at us if we spoke disrespectfully to the black maids who worked with us and for us. So there was very much of an awareness, a concern. There was concern about their families, and my parents would ask about their families and care about their families, but not a huge involvement. And then the end of apartheid came. By that time, I was already an adult as things started transforming, and the transformation period was a hard one. There wasn't revolution, but there was a lot of crime. The infrastructure of the white government was breaking down. New infrastructures weren't in place, and so society was under enormous stress. And that was a period that I was beginning to develop a lot of the thinking that I teach today, and it was developed in that very high pressure environment of change. So we're living in a time of very fast change at the moment, but the change is contained to some degree. There is political change, and there's technological change, and there's some social change, but that was all happening at the same time. Everything in life was changing rapidly and extremely. The extremity of the change was really interesting. So a lot of my work and life at that time was helping people cope with accelerated high pressure change, and certainly that's where a lot of where I've landed up in my thinking started from.
Well, I can't wait to dive into that topic because we are in times of tremendous change. So this is so appropriate for the times we're living today as well. But before we move forward and we go to today's times, please share with us, how was it to work with Nelson Mandela's government? I mean, I know you helped draft one of the world's first corporate ethic codes. What was the process like? What did you learn about? You know what I'm curious to know also? What did you learn about human nature and leadership during that time?
So Nelson Mandela was in a different category altogether. I did work with members of his government. I did work with members of the previous government. So I worked with members of the white apartheid government during the last years of its existence. I worked with business leaders, and I worked with trade union leaders. So I had white business leaders of great stature, amazing human beings. Uh, I didn't come across in that time with the leaders I was working with. I didn't come across bad people. Even the people that I was working with in the white government were people who were trying to effect change. It might have been different had I been working with them 10 years earlier, but at that time, the people who were in F.W. de Klerk's government were all people who had bought into the idea of change and were trying to promote it each in their own way. And the interaction that I had with them was amazing. Um, Mandela himself was a different category of person. And perhaps one of the most important conversations I had with him was when I asked him what his transformation was. I remembered as a child, you need to bear in mind, Gabriela, that while he was in prison during that period of a total of 20 something years, we heard nothing about him. The newspapers weren't allowed to report about him, they weren't allowed to mention his name. There were no photographs of him. So he before he went to prison, we saw him, and I remember as a child both the pictures of him and his speeches, and my parents talking about him. He was quite a radical activist. So if you think in today's terms of radical activists, that's how we saw him, a revolutionary. And then he disappeared into prison, and then he comes out of prison a global statesman. able to unite people across the spectrum, able to do things that nobody else has been able to do, not only in South Africa, but anywhere in the world. I don't know anybody who has had in recent history that unifying effect that Nelson Mandela had. And he had it almost instantly. And I asked him what that was about. How did he transform? When did he transform? And he spoke to me about his first night on Robben Island. Robben Island's a bit like Alcatraz. It's this island off Cape Town on which the prison is. There's nothing there but a prison and the support for the prison. And you can see the attractive lights of Cape Town, and you can see Table Mountain during the daytime. It must be agonizing daily to be living in that harsh condition of incarceration with your friends and families just a few miles across the sea, in this very beautiful city. Robben Island is kind of one of the most uh, unfriendly islands or spaces in the world, and just across the way is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And that contrast is metaphorically and in reality very jarring. And he talked to him about his first night on Robben Island when he was locked into his cell for the first day of his sentence, and he took an inventory of what he had and what he'd lost, trying to find out whether there's anything that hadn't been taken away from him. And he went through his freedom and his family and his political party and his friends and his business. Uh, Everything had been taken away from him, all his belongings, his money, everything had been taken away from him. And he tried to find, he searched, what is there? Is there anything that I still own? And he came to a remarkable conclusion. He said, I still own my own dignity. That nobody can take from me. I can give it away, but nobody can take it away. Because dignity is a function of how you behave. It's not a function of how other people behave to you. People can behave in offensive ways to you, and you can hold on to your dignity. Um, that's your choice. Being offended is a choice, and being dignified is a choice. And I chose, he said, to hold on to my dignity. And then he explained to me that dignity doesn't just mean treating other people well, it means even the people who are oppressing you. So he came to the conclusion that the only way he could hold on to his dignity is if he even treated his prison guards well. And he treated them with dignity, even at the moments that they were, I won't say they were torturing him. I don't think they did that. But they were certainly making his life very uncomfortable. And even during those moments of making his life so uncomfortable, he was responding in a way that was always dignified and always thoughtful, to the point that his prison guards became very, very deep and close personal friends of his during the time that he was in prison. So that discovery that dignity is something you own, nobody can take it from you. Respect is something others can give you or take from you. I can treat you respectfully and I can treat you disrespectfully. But dignity is something that overrides the way I treat you. I can treat you disrespectfully and you can still hold on to your dignity. And we see people who do that. And there have been world leaders. He's not the only one who's done that. There have been world leaders that have shown that capacity to do that. But he was just exemplary in that fashion. And everybody could recognize that inner dignity, that inner majesty that came from him. It wasn't from his position of being president. He had it before he was president. He had it the moment he stepped out of prison, and was first seen on television. Immediately you could see this man has inner greatness. And it was then that I realized, I suppose the idea I've been raised with, but I saw it in front of me, this idea that your greatness is within you. You've got to access it, and nobody can take it away from you. It's up to you. If you want to access your greatness and project it and use it and share it with the people around you, or you want to abandon your own greatness. And most of us, unfortunately, for most of the time, abandon our own greatness. It's not a binary thing, it's sort of an on and off. It's not as if we're permanently one or the other. Most of us go through times when we access our greatness and times when we don't. But generally, most of us spend a lot of our lives having abandoned our greatness. And I find that so painfully tragic that that's what I've devoted my life to helping people overcome.
Wow, I need a moment. You know, it's not ideal to become speechless in the middle of an interview, a conversation in a podcast, but I feel this is how you left me. Like I can feel your words sinking in and have goosebumps, first of all. And thank you. Thank you for every word you said. I'm processing, so I'm not sure yet uh, how to describe what I feel, and I can imagine how the listeners feel. But let me ask you, your book, Lead by Greatness, is that what inspired you to write this book and the title?
It's a great question, Gabrielle. And by the way, I really appreciate your vulnerability and your realness. That the way you reacted and the way you respond is so clearly not scripted, and it's just such an honor to be talking to somebody who isn't scripted. And I really appreciate that. I needed to write. I needed to. There had been so much development in the work that I was doing, so I definitely needed to committed to paper, to write it down, to document it, and that's something that I had decided to do. Exactly what that book was going to be and what it was going to look like, it took me a long time to get that into my mind. And yes, certainly the great people I've interacted with, and I've been so fortunate in my life to have been close to many great people, and I mean many. Um, People from previous generations that are a long time no longer with us, but Nelson Mandela is just one of them. Uh, that exposure to greatness, that one on one, the ability not only to have seen it in the distance or to have seen it on a TV screen, but to have had long conversations, and in some cases, having studied and being mentored by human beings who were great, not just great in their work, not just great in their field, great in their humanity, just great human beings, um, really made me feel that that's the area that needs to be worked about. People were beginning to write about greatness, but greatness was just about great accomplishment. And I was talking about something else. I was talking not about doing great things, I was talking about being great. And through that being, accomplishing, not setting out uh, to accomplish, to do, to change the world. That's all fine. That's all good. But I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about setting out to change yourself, setting out to grow yourself, setting out to access the greatness. And Gabriela, you and I know that the greatness in us is an infinite greatness. It's not contained. The greatness in us has a divine origin. There's something godly about the greatness in each of us. And to be able to access that, to be able to know that and grow it and begin to radiate it and to begin to use it in the way we interact with people. Wow, what that does to change the world. Just imagine if a critical mass of people in the world lived that way. What would the world look like? So we're so busy focused on making a difference to the world that we forget that the best way to make a difference to the world is to make a difference in ourselves. And as we ourselves move the needle of greatness within ourselves, so everything around us is impacted by that, and around us far beyond that. I mentioned in Lead by Greatness, and I'm sure you've come across this research that was done. The particular research I'm talking about was done some 20 years ago by the University of Harvard and USC in San Diego, work that was able to reveal that we impact people 3 degrees removed from us. That means our way of being, what we're feeling, and our greatness or lack of greatness impacts our friend, people we don't even know exist, people who may live thousands of miles away from us. We're able to impact them. We don't yet know how, but we've been able to map it. We can see those differences. We understand that they exist. That's how powerful we are, that we can impact human beings, hundreds, thousands of human beings that we don't even know without even directly touching them. How much more do we impact people when we do touch them? When we do speak to them, when we engage with them, when we're walking down the street and we smile or don't smile at them, how much energy we as human beings are able to generate and put out. It's phenomenal. It's beyond our capacity to appreciate, and we're not doing it. We're busy with other stuff. It's just so sad.
Wow. Okay. You're leaving me speechless every time, but as you were talking, I'm thinking about ripple effect. And that's a discussion we brought to the dinner table in our family because I was reading the book, The Ripple Effect. I think that the more we tap into our greatness, which is infinite because it's divine by nature, like you said, then maybe the amplitude of that ripple effect becomes um, bigger. We reach more people, or so the basically the more we work on ourselves, the more we tap into our greatness, but the more we can impact the world. Correct?
Totally so. And there's that as an aside. Um, the story I think I mentioned also in Lead by Greatness of the conversation I had with the Rebbe, one of the great spiritual minds of our times. He was a leader of a very large group of people with influence on presidents and prime ministers around the world. People recognized uh, his enormous greatness, intellectual greatness, spiritual greatness, emotional greatness of heart and of mind. Just one of these great people that I've had the opportunity to interact with. And when one of my conversations with him was about the fact that I didn't feel I could cope with what I was doing, with the amount of things that I'd taken on, and he was encouraging me to take on more, and I was just saying that it's impossible. And he uh, stopped in it for a moment and he said, "The trouble with you is you think that human interaction is like a chemical reaction. That you take two things, like two human beings meet each other, and there's a reaction, and you think of it as a chemical reaction. So there's one, and you get together, and you've made three or four, and you think it's linear." He said it's nuclear, it's not chemical. And that means that your impact when you interact with another human being is exponential, and there's no way you can know how far it goes. And even if you're just interacting with one human being, that is infinite. If you're touching the soul of another person, if you're interacting with a person on a very superficial transactional level, then it's obviously it's not going to be a nuclear event. But if you can touch the soul of another person, that can be a nuclear event. And then the impact of that is exponential, and it just goes way beyond any boundaries you can imagine, and does come back to you. Of course, there's that echo effect, that ripple effect goes out and comes back in again. And if we would just get better attuned and trained at being able to access that spiritual power in each of us and use it in our engagements, use it in the way we lead, use it in the way we communicate, use it in the way we love people, use it in the way we care about people. If we could just access that, what a difference each of us could make in the world.
So, how do we access that when we live in a world that is challenging to say the least? How do we help leaders grow their companies without losing their soul? Not just without losing their soul, but actually leading from their soul in practical terms.
Gabriela, it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And people have asked me that about my work. People have said to me, "It's such a no-brainer. Why doesn't everybody do this?" Yes, it's a no-brainer, but it's hard. It's hard to do. It's not hard to understand. Why it's hard to do is you've got to be willing to pay a price for it. If you want everything and this as well, then you don't get it. Uh, and that applies in so many areas that you've experienced it in your life, and we all have, I guess. Somebody wants to become a great musician, you're going to have to give something up. Um, I had a teacher who once got up in front of all of us and a few hundred students, and he said, "I know you all want to become great. I know that, and that's wonderful. The problem is you want to sleep at night as well, and that's not possible. You've actually got to make a choice. You're either going to have regular sleep or you're going to become great, but you can't do both. There just isn't enough time in the day." And you've got to be able to give up. So if a person's starting a company, leading a company or whatever, and he wants to be the biggest, best company in the world, and he wants to be a multimillionaire, and he wants his yacht and his private jet, and he wants all these things, and he wants to be a great human being, forget it, not going to happen. It's the person who says, I don't care about the yacht. I don't care about the plane. I don't care if my business is the biggest in the world. I want to make a difference in the world. I want to do something qualitative, not quantitative. And qualitative comes from inside of me. So the first thing is setting those ambitions in the qualitative realm rather than the quantitative realm. Now, it so happens that if you do that, there's a good chance you're going to get quantitative outcome as well. It's not definite. Some do, some don't. But it's not even definite if you set out to do it quantitatively. Isn't that right? There are many people who set out to start businesses and they fail. But even if you look at the great businesses of today, the Googles of today, the Microsoft of today, the Apple of today, and many others, they didn't set out to make big companies that would make billions of dollars for their shareholders.
Strong
They
why.
just set out to do something valuable for the world. And everything else flowed from that. And that requires some strength of character and willingness to sacrifice for greatness. So the first thing I ask people, Gabriela, is okay, you want to access that greatness and grow it. What price are you willing to pay for it? And I'm not talking about my consulting fee, that's pennies. I'm talking about making paying a price, making a sacrifice in your life. What are you going to have less of if you're going to be willing to invest into the soul stuff, into the quality of your business, the soul of your business, the soul of the people you employ, and you're going to spend time building them up, investing in them as human beings. What are you willing to forego? If you're going to be on the American efficiency train, then forget about the soul stuff because the soul isn't efficient. The human being is not an efficient animal. Animals are much more efficient than we are, and we're learning very quickly that machines are much more efficient than we are as well. We can't think as fast as AI can, not even a fraction, and it's getting faster and faster. There are other things we can do, but they're not efficient. To be creative is not an efficient process. To access greatness is not an efficient process. You need time. You need space. To make good wine is not an efficient process. You can get a little more efficient at it, but at the end of the day, you need years. You need time. You've got to grow a vine, and then you've got to mature the grapes and the vats. It takes years. And if you're going to try and do it efficiently, you might be able to make millions of bottles of wine, but it's not going to be great wine. It's the same with a human being. If you're pursuing efficiency at all cost, you're going to miss the greatness train. If you want to be on the greatness train, you've got to be willing to sacrifice some efficiencies. That doesn't mean that efficiency isn't important in business, but the reason efficiency is important in business is not an end in itself. It's not in order to make money for shareholders. The reason it's important to be efficient in business is so that my business is sustainable, so that I can continue for many years to serve my customers, so that my customers are not paying an additional fine for working with me. They're not being penalized by work in order to work with me. So my efficiency is part of my caring about the people I serve. I want to serve them efficiently. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste their money. That's why I need to be efficient. If my efficiency is focused on my shareholder, I can't pursue the greatness train at the same time. Then I've got to pursue market growth, and that's the purpose for which I live. And we need to make that decision. It's a hard decision to make. Am I after greatness and efficiency as an outcome, or am I after efficiency as an end in itself?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I love what you're saying because normally I ask my client, what's the price of you accomplishing your goals? Let's say you want to get into med school. Okay, what's the price for that? That you might study harder the years before to get the prerequisites you need while your friends go out and party on Saturday night. What's the price of not going after your goal, not getting into med school? And now list them. The price of going after my goals and the price of not. And now that you have one next to each other, now you are in choice. Now you have agency. Which one are you not willing to pay?
Yes, nice, beautiful.
I remember when I did a career change from engineering to coaching, I knew what was the price I had to pay. Compromises were made together as a family, as a couple. And then there was the price of not aligning myself career wise. And it became very clear what's the price I'm not willing to pay. I mean, it was the price of regret. Of,
Correct, right.
yeah.
There's quite a nice metaphor that many years ago I was learning to fly, and one of the things we learned that if you fly in a cloud without instrument rating, your life expectancy, I think they said, was 90 seconds. Um, and the reason for that is because you don't have a horizon. So you don't have a North Star. You don't have your value system. You don't have anything you're flying towards. You're in a cloud. And you start correcting. You imagine you're turning. You imagine you're dipping, and you start correcting and correcting and overcorrecting, and you get yourself into a spin. And that's such a metaphor for life. If you're in a cloud, if you don't have moral clarity, you get yourself into a spin. And the life expectancy, the moral life expectancy, is a brief one.
Your words are music to my ears, I have to tell you, David. Thank you for sharing this wisdom. So let's talk about spiritual fingerprint.
So what we had to work out, Gabriel, was how to work with people from all sorts of faiths, because our clients have been around the world in many different countries and cultures and faiths, um, and we had to find a way to be able to give everybody a method to access their soul that isn't faith dependent, that isn't dependent on any particular faith or even on faith at all. Um, and the fingerprint was really how we got there, which is discovering, and we call it a fingerprint because I believe it's something you're born with. Yes, it develops through life, it evolves through life, but the basic program you're born with, the basic DNA, I call it spiritual DNA, you're born with. And just as your height is predetermined and the color of your eyes is predetermined, so the primary aspects of your character are predetermined, and you can get better at it. You can build your muscles, you can become better at what you do, but you can't become an athlete if you really don't have an athletic build at all. You can't change that. So it is with character. There are things you can improve, but you can't change. And the idea of the spiritual fingerprint is to discover that code. What is it that is absolutely core to who you are? What belief system, what values are absolutely core, and how are they mapped? How do they relate to one another? So that many of us have got good values. I found, in fact, that all of humanity share the same sorts of values with very little difference. We all want our children to be kind and generous and hardworking, productive and honest and integrous and fair and all those good things. We all like those things. That doesn't make them true values of ours. What makes a value is something which has driven our life, and I call those values value drivers. And we all have somewhere between 5 and 10 of those. We don't have a lot. Values that have really shaped our lives. And those values can themselves be at times in conflict with one another. So if I have a value of kindness and a value of honesty, there will be times I have to make a choice. Am I going to be honest even though it's unkind, certainly in the short term, or am I going to be kind even if it's at the expense of a bit of honesty? Am I going to compliment you when the compliment isn't really deserved, but I want to make you feel good? Or am I going to be really honest even if that makes you feel bad? We've got to make these choices. And those choices are a function of our leadership fingerprint or our spiritual fingerprint. So the spiritual fingerprint is a way that we map to the point of having it graphically in front of you of exactly what yours looks like. And we've done tens of thousands around the world. We haven't found two that are the same. Um, Initially, we did it in coaching sessions, and it would take 4 or 5 coaching sessions, wonderful coaching sessions, such meaningful ones, because you
Oh, I
really,
can imagine that.
oh, it's unbelievable, Gabriela, because you review your whole life, and you get to the bottom of why you made the choices you did, not from a psychological perspective, from a spiritual perspective. what in your soul was driving you to make those choices or not make other choices? And then we develop it. Now we've taught it to AI. So we've trained AI on the thousands of fingerprints that we've done, and AI is doing pretty well. It's not the same as a personal session, but it's pretty good. And if you do a combination, we're finding with a lot of people are doing our online version, the digital AI, which is on our website, and then they ask for a one coaching session, occasionally two, but even one coaching session to help them settle with it and learn how to use it is valuable. But the AI process itself, it questions you, it challenges you, it helps you construct this fingerprint. It's not like a personality assessment. It doesn't
Okay.
give you sort of options, choose A, B, or C, and you're an X, Y, Z. It works from a blank piece of paper. It works from nothing. You build it out of your life, and there's nothing predetermined in it at all. So it's a very valuable, very exciting process. And then once you've got it, it's something that you come back to. You can see it on my shelf there at the back, next to that family photograph. You can see a diagram of a round disc. That's my fingerprint, and I will
Okay.
look at it when I have a difficult decision to make. I'll look at it every day, but particularly when I have a difficult decision to make, just to check: am I in alignment? Am I making my choices and my decisions
This is
the way
powerful.
that person would? Because that person is me at my best. That person is me at my greatest.
Wow. This is so powerful and I would say critical in times of uncertainty that we're living today, political, economical, even internal. And certainly here also in North America, how can leaders use these values as a compass? So, can you tell the listeners where they can access or how they can access the leadership fingerprint
Yeah,
process?
yeah, yes, certainly. So, firstly, it's on our website, lapininternational.com, Lapin International, one word, lapininternational.com. You can find it there. You can send us an email at info@lapininternational.com, and we'll send you a code and a link to the fingerprint. You can connect with Lapin International on LinkedIn. We have a page on LinkedIn, or with me personally on LinkedIn. Any of those methods, we can make sure that you're able to access it. It's a very inexpensive, very time efficient. We talked about efficiency, but a person who's serious about their greatness would want to have an hour of coaching in addition to that if they can manage it.
Well, thank you for that. We'll add the link to the show notes. So, my last question is, what's one step I can take this week to start aligning who I am with how I lead? Or somebody who's feeling out of alignment. They're successful on paper, but they are disconnected inside. Where should they begin?
I think that meditation is a very helpful step. And whatever that form of meditation is, whether it's formal meditation or it's just stopping and doing some deep breathing. And some people get scared of the word meditation because I don't know how to. I was never trained to. Meditation is just breathing. It's just breathing mindfully and consciously and slowly, and just focusing on your breathing, because by focusing on your breathing, you're able to slow your mind. And when you slow your mind moves from a transactional analytical mode to a mode of being, to a more subconscious, to a more spiritual mode. And in that mode, when you've settled, and that's something one should do every day, preferably several times a day. Some people do it in prayer. Some people do it while they're reading. Some people do it while they're running. I can't get my head around that, how one meditates while one runs, but runners love to do that. They get into that zone and they can do it. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. To get into that zone where your mind slows down, and in that slower space, that inefficient space, where you're not trying to solve every problem and move it at the speed of light, but just to be connected with yourself, just to ask yourself some questions. What is really important to me? And just ask that question over and over again every day, and write down the answers. Give me one thing that is really important to me and write that down. And tomorrow, ask the question again. You might give the same answer. After a few days, you might have another answer. Just keep on checking in with yourself. What is really important to me? and then looking at that list and saying, and how aligned is my life with what is really important to me? And what changes do I need to make?
David, you leave me speechless. This is how I feel. It never happened to me. There's so much grace and wisdom in what you share today. I am so grateful for your conversation, for your wisdom, for your words. And I'm certain that our listeners are going to feel nourished when they listen to this episode.
I really appreciate that, and I've enjoyed getting to know you and speaking with you. And I hope there'll be many more occasions to have conversations and speak to one another.
Absolutely. So, dear listeners, take a moment this week to reflect on what David was saying. What are the values that have been guiding you along, all along? Are they yours? Are you truly leading by them if they are yours? And if you want to take this to the next level, connect with David at lapininternational.com. We're going to have all the links. You can also find his book, Lead by Greatness. I can't wait to read it. It's on Amazon as well. So thank you, David. Thank you, dear listeners, for joining in this episode of Life Engineering. Please don't forget to subscribe and share. This means a lot to us. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.